Hello there everybody, Adam Cleary from FourFourTwo here, and England are rubbish! I definitely read on the internet this weekend. After going behind to a Zinchenko goal, they laboured to a measly 1-1 draw against Ukraine in their European Championship qualifiers and had a second half where they barely threatened, created no real chances and just looked pretty crap. And as we seem to hear with increasing regularity, the reason for this is Gareth Southgate, both his conservative approach and his favouritism towards certain players. But is that true, or is there something else going on here? Let's have a look. So this was the England team that set up against Ukraine, and it was actually pretty similar to sort of the favoured lineup from the World Cup. It was certainly the same shape. The only differences were that John Stones and Luke Shaw were missing through injury. Had they been fit, they would almost certainly have started. The only tactical change was that instead of Phil Foden, who started against France, you had James Maddison, because James Maddison is a fantastic player, and if there's a way you can fit him into this England side, you should absolutely try to do it. Now, the blame for this draw, if you can really call it that, isn't really bringing proportion to any one player. Nobody really stood out as having a particular bad game, but given that there was controversy behind the selections of Harry Maguire at right centre-back and Jordan Henderson, neither of whom are playing what you would call top division football at the minute, one because he's not playing any football and the other because he's in Saudi Arabia, they kind of seem to be where a lot of the conversation is happening, certainly. And the thing is, these two are actually very symbolic of the problems Gareth Southgate is currently facing as England manager, because realistically, neither of them should be in the England first 11. But the fact is, they are two players who have to be in the England first 11. Going to start with Harry Maguire here, because ages ago, when we were just starting to get FourFourTwo back up and hardly anybody was watching us, we did a video on why Harry Maguire always plays for England. And just the very short version of that video is that even when Harry Maguire is out of form at Manchester United, and even when Harry Maguire is out of the team at Manchester United, he continues to play not only really well, but a very important role for this specific England team. The whole base structure that Gareth Southgate has, regardless of what shape they're playing at the top end of the pitch, involves this triangle between Pickford, Stones and Maguire. The three of them just have this excellent understanding together, the importance of which cannot be downplayed in international football. Like, how many times do you see them get in a muddle or get mixed up or make a mistake or not look like they know what they're doing. They've been together as a three since like 2016, 2017. They've been through three major tournaments together now, and as a pairing, Stones and Maguire complement each other really, really well. Like, there was a lot of question marks over Maguire's inclusion in the starting 11 heading into the last World Cup, but then he went on and had a low-key fantastic tournament. Like, if you look at his FB ref profile purely from that tournament, he was arguably the best in possession centre-back in the entire competition. Like, his contribution to moving England up the pitch, to the build-up phase, to getting involved everywhere was just sublime. Harry Maguire is in that England squad because of his ability to break through presses, to carry the ball into more dangerous areas, to play long and medium range passes, to effectively allow England to relieve pressure in their own third and get the ball further up the pitch quicker. Now, don't get me wrong, he was absolutely awful for Manchester United going into the tournament. He was awful for Manchester United going out of the tournament, and I can absolutely understand why he doesn't even get within a sniff of the starting 11 for Erik ten Hag's team now. But the fact is, you put him in this team, in this system, around these other players, and he has always done an excellent job. So you can't drop a player like that. So Maguire always plays because he always plays pretty well. And then, of course, there's Jordan Henderson, who feels like an even more baffling pick because while, yes, he is currently in a first 11 and getting game time, it's a first 11 and game time that's in the Saudi Pro League. And of course, no offense to any Saudi Arabian Pro League fans who are watching this video, but I think at the time of recording, it's still like the 47th best league in the world. Getting better, certainly, but still nowhere near a top division. So again, why does Jordan Henderson play for England? Well, because when Jordan Henderson plays for England, he has thus far played pretty well, and you can't just chuck him out and throw somebody else in because he's currently doing a very important job in this team. Like, I don't think this really gets talked about, but Henderson had his time as a starter for England, and he sort of fell out of favour. He fell out of the starting 11 around the time of the last Euros, and only recently, towards the last World Cup, came back into it and has cemented his place. And he's not back in because of Calvin Phillips. I know that's the player he sort of directly replaced, but that's not why he got back into this England team. He got back in because of Jude Bellingham. Like, if you can remember all the way back to those Euros, going into the really big games, England never played like a 4-2-3-1 or a 4-3-3. They always had like a 3, let me just line this up nicely, like a 3 4-3, didn't they? And how Southgate wanted this to work was the two wide players, Sterling and Saka, normally they got in nice and tight to Kane, so they were both a goal threat. You had Kieran Trippier, who would push up to this side to provide like long balls and crossing. You would have Luke Shaw, who would get on the overlap. You remember the Italy goal, that's exactly how that worked. And then out of these two, you had Walker, who was free to sort of push into the half space and move up the pitch, and Harry Maguire here, who was free to hit long balls and passing and carry that as well. Now, what you may be noticing from this system is that it is a complete waste of a player like Jude Bellingham, because you'd have to put him here. Declan Rice and Calvin Phillips were perfect in this system because they were both very disciplined, they were both good on the ball, they could both occasionally get up and support if a numerical advantage was in the offing, but by and large they were there to provide the stability to allow all this other stuff to go on around them. But then Jude Bellingham breaks onto the scene and he is simply too good not to build this team around, so Southgate kinda has. And now what England have got is a 4-3-3 designed to allow Bellingham to do pretty much anything he likes. Again, another video we did on the channel how he kinda plays three positions at once. He can push up into the 10, that's why he's wearing it, and he can sort of influence things in that part of the pitch. In other phases, he can sort of be as part of a midfield three and help create overloads in that area, give England numerical superiority, but also, because there's only one pivot and they're not doing a 4-2-3-1, he is also able to drop back in front of the defence without that area being completely crowded. It's a system designed to allow Bellingham to get on the ball in any area of the pitch he wants without that area of the pitch then becoming overcrowded. But as good as Bellingham is, the way that works as a system requires you to have a counterbalance on the other side of midfield, someone who will see what his teammate is doing and adjust his game accordingly. If Bellingham pushes right the way up, Henderson is a good enough reader of the game that he will sort of be a bit more conservative and effectively give them then a double pivot so they're not getting swamped in the middle. It's even more important off the ball because Bellingham is so important to England's press. Like, for everything Harry Kane does really well at this stage of his career, he can't go around chasing defenders around trying to close down loads of passing lanes, so Bellingham's really important for shutting areas of the pitch off. Now, if he did that and got drawn into it, that would leave Declan Rice exposed completely on his own. So again, Henderson, very good at recognising what gaps are being created, what will happen if the press is beaten, and filling that area accordingly. Like, just as a very throwaway example of this, and I appreciate it sounds a bit stupid, that first goal England conceded against France was, in terms of how this structure works, a really good example of how good it is, despite the fact they conceded. Kyle Walker was being very cautious in that game with Mbappe, but the one time he did get right behind him and England should have created something down that side were it not for a blatant foul that was ignored, Mbappe had the entire channel of the pitch to run into, except no, he didn't, because Jordan Henderson was reading the game really well and came across to block that. And by the time, I think it was Tchouaméni, as about 8 pints deep at that point, lashes one in from 25 yards, England have, from a counter-attacking situation, reformed their defensive structure really, really well. Like, it took a superb goal like that to break them down. So, again, Jordan Henderson is in this England squad because he currently does a really good job in this England squad and has not yet started doing it badly. But the really annoying thing for Gareth Southgate is that these two players have created such a distraction around themselves by the choices they've made in this summer. Like, they're very important to how England currently play, but they've made themselves a huge talking point. Like, Maguire's decision not to just go to West Ham and play football, to stay and fight for his place, means that every time he's in this England squad, Southgate's going to get grilled about it. And Henderson, despite what he may have said, deciding to go and take a huge sum of money in Saudi Arabia, means he's an even bigger talking point. But hang on a minute, Adam, if they're actually good players and they play well for England, then why was the Ukraine game crap? Why couldn't they really do anything on the ball? And yeah, fair point. It was a pretty bad performance. It was uninspiring. It was lackluster. It didn't seem particularly dangerous, but it's football. It happens. Like, John Stones is absolutely vital to how England build up, and he wasn't there. Mark Gay's a great player. He'll do a good job when called upon, but if we just look at this, he didn't pass the ball forwards hardly at all. And John Stones, when he's in that England squad, almost exclusively passes the ball forward. So you take that out, it's harder to build things up. They were clearly conducting some sort of experiment with Maddison and Bellingham as well. Like, Maddison kept moving into the 10 area to allow Bellingham to go out to this side to get on the ball and the space that created. But also, they would occasionally just completely swap round. Maddison would then get on the ball deep to try and drive it forward, and Bellingham would stay out wide and cover across. It didn't really work. Nothing really came about from that area of the pitch, but given how talented they both are and how comfortable they were doing it, worth giving it a go. And I mean, just aside from that, Ukraine aren't a bad team. It's not a terrible result to draw with them in a quote-unquote away game. Like, France dropped points in the exact same fixture in World Cup qualifying. They put 3 past Germany quite recently. They're not a terrible side. Now, don't get me wrong, I believe very strongly that as a manager, Gareth Southgate is one that struggles to impact games as they're actually unfolding in front of them. His substitutions can often be slightly destabilising, or even if they are good, they tend to come a little bit later than they really should have done. But that's a marginal difference you're talking about making to a team, not something that could revolutionise their fortune. But here's the thing, right? This is the entire crux of this video. You may be asking yourself, well, Adam, if England are so good, then why are they so bad? This is clearly an incredibly talented crop of players all coming through at a similar time. There's good understanding, there's good experience, there's exciting young players. If they're so good, why aren't they good? And this is the thing that we all, as a nation of football fans, myself included, really struggle with. This is what a dominant international team actually looks like. Yeah, I can see spat your coffee all over your screen at that one. Yeah, honestly, trust me on this. This is what dominance at international level actually sort of looks like. And I know, honestly, I struggle to get my head around it sometimes as well. Like, you'll be a Premier League fan, for example. Let's say you support a team at the bottom half of the Premier League. You probably still watch loads of Man City, of Liverpool, of all the top sides, and you see what they do to good clubs every single week. How they destroy teams, how they stop teams sitting in, how they always find a way to score lots of goals. To you, to all of us, that's what a dominant football team looks like. But you just don't get that at international level. Those teams are so good because they're drilled every single day by a manager who's got a really clear philosophy that they can all buy into. And when they don't, they buy specific players with very certain skill sets designed to fix specific holes in the team. That's how you get that good. It just doesn't exist at international level. You get to train with these guys a couple of times a month at the absolute most. You don't go out to pick specific players to do specific jobs. You have to work with what you've got. You're constantly cramming square pegs into round holes. And this is about as good as it ever gets. Just look at the rest of the European Championship qualifying groups. Like, Spain got beat off Scotland and have Georgia and Norway breathing down their necks to get that final automatic qualification spot. But they're still a really good team. Italy are in England's group and they couldn't beat England with 10 men, and then they drew to Macedonia. They are the reigning European champions. They're a good team. Croatia, always fancied at these tournaments, always seem to pull something together. They drop points at Wales, a Wales side who have scored less goals than Kosovo. Portugal, though, right? Portugal have been really dominant in qualifying. They haven't even conceded a single goal yet. And yeah, they went out of the World Cup to 10-man Morocco, and they've just squeezed past 10-man Iceland in the 89th minute, and their press are having an inquest over how they can be so uninspiring and so negative. France, of course, going into this tournament as favourites, have scored 4 less goals than England in qualifying and just squeezed past Ireland 1-0 in March. Like, these were the player ratings that team got against Ireland. Again, in the French press, they were accused of being uninspiring and too negative and unable to break down well-organised teams. Where have you heard that before? Who else? Netherlands currently level on points with Greece, of all teams, and also just squeezed past Ireland in a game that got them absolutely hammered in their local press. And Germany today have sacked a manager for the very first time in their history after this result, and this result, and this result, and this result. Did you even see what the press in Argentina said about their team when they lost the opening game of the World Cup to Saudi Arabia? Oh, you didn't? Well, stop me if this sounds familiar. They're too conservative. They're not attacking enough. The substitutions are weird. The manager's out of his depth. They can't break down teams that are organised. They're squandering generational talents. Just all the usual stuff. So look, the point I'm trying to make here, and honestly, if you ever take a single thing I say on this channel seriously, even if you don't quite believe it, please make it this. If you are struggling to understand why England aren't more dominant at international football, it's because this is what dominance of international football looks like. Like, it is always quite uninspiring and it always looks a little bit conservative. And you're always scratching your head at the selections and the substitutions because of the players you see at club level and what they do in those teams with those systems. You think surely they can come on and do this at national level. But this is honestly about as good as it gets. Like, oh, they only got to that World Cup semi-final because they had an easy run, and yeah, okay, but they still got there. And oh, they missed their greatest chance to win a tournament because they were in the final with Italy and didn't go on and win it. But yeah, they got to that final. Two things that no other England team with more exciting and attacking players and more expressive and ambitious managers managed to do. And there's a reason for that. Do I think that England could get a better manager than Gareth Southgate? Yes. Yes, I do. Do I think he should probably go after this tournament, whatever happens? Yes, again, yes, I do think that. But whoever comes in, whatever they do, I promise you, it's not going to be like flicking a magic switch and they're going to win every game 6-0. The best managers will still have it looking a little bit like this. So yes, anyway, there you go. That's what I think about all of that. But please let me know what you think in the comments below. Am I just completely out of my tree? I do genuinely enjoy reading about it. And of course, don't forget to subscribe to us here on FourFourTwo. It really, really does help the channel out every time we get new subscribers. That's really good. It shows that we're doing the right thing, and then we show that to other people, and they're like, oh yeah, good job, mate, and they pat us on the head, and I like pats on the head. You can get me on Twitter at Adam Cleary, Clery. All the FourFourTwo socials are just in the corner of the videos. Check that out as well. And until next we meet, when they've possibly got stuffed by Scotland, which would be a good video, you know, views and all that. I'll see you then. Goodbye. Bye.